out of that session before we move on to the next one, because we're going to go straight into the next one before we take a break.
I have a question.
Mike?
Do we have that microphone? This is where I get nervous. I hope I can answer them.
So in first few slides we discussed about characteristics of proactive leadership. That a leader should be know, drive, support, guide, mentor, be fair, care, and trust.
Yeah.
What are the characteristics of reactive leadership?
Of reactive leadership. Well, you know, one of the things that I spoke about is you should be planning how you lead your team. As a leader, you should actually have a plan for how you lead your team. If you don't have a plan, then basically you're not going to be able to make the best of your team members. You won't actually be building them up and growing them and developing them and dealing with them. So the characteristic, I can't get the word out. Characteristic is going to be a leader that is really dealing with things on a day-by-day basis, almost like, you know, here's the work for today, you know, rather than actually thinking through the individuals and how they need to be handled in a longer-term viewpoint. And the downside to that is that the team will be static. The team won't grow, they won't develop, the individuals won't develop quickly. The work may get done, but you know, the work will never achieve its potential because the work will be done with a static team that isn't growing and developing its skills and its sort of team well-being. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, to some extent.
Great.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Any other questions? No more questions? It's good. We took a little longer over the feedback session, so that's fine. I'm quite ready. If everyone's ready to move on to the next session, I think we're going to take a break after the next one. Is that okay?
Yes, please. Absolutely.
Great. Okay. So where does the leader lead? No, upwards. Obviously. So, in the beginning of the last session when we spoke about leading your team.
The graphic is very nice.
My daughter is a really good artist, and she loves Japan, and she's always drawing Japanese manga art. So it just reminds me of my daughter when I see these Japanese manga pictures. But
The management is in the back.
Yeah.
The red one is the management.
Yeah. So in the last session we were thinking about, you know, what do your team need from you as a manager? Now we're thinking through, okay, so what do your managers need from you? Because everyone reports into somebody. So they need you to work, do everything they ask, and that makes happy managers. No, sorry, that's not right. I'm just kidding with you. Just making sure that you're awake after the last session. So in the last one, when we were thinking about team, and I was saying that, you know, you need to know the individuals in your team. Well, you also need to know your manager, and your manager needs you to know them, because you need to know what motivates your manager. You need to know what your manager likes, doesn't like. You know, you really need to understand your manager to get the best out of your relationship with your manager. It's very, very important. You need to be transparent. So, as a manager, you know, you're all managers of teams, and you must hate it when something comes up that has been happening that no one's told you about, and it's suddenly a surprise and it's too late to do something about it. So if you want people to be transparent with you, so that you're aware of issues as they crop up and you have plenty of time to deal with them. Of course, your managers want the same thing. So, they need you to be transparent with what's happening in your team and the work that you're doing. And they need you to be honest. So, if there's a problem, if I'm working on a development project and I've hit a roadblock, I'm going to miss the deadline. I'm not going to achieve my goal for this month. And the manager comes up and says, how's things going? You don't want to be saying, yeah, it's all fine, don't worry. And you're scratching your head thinking, how am I going to solve this problem? You don't want to tell my manager because I don't want my manager to be upset. But being honest with your manager is the most important thing, because that's what you want from your team members, right? You want them to tell you if they're stuck on something, they don't know, maybe they're trying to work through a coding problem and it's taking ages because they don't know how to solve the problem. If they told you, you'd be able to find someone else that can sit with them and help them through the problem, and then the problem would get fixed quickly, and then the project would stay on track. So being honest is really, really important with your managers. Be restrained. Now, there's a particular reason I've put this in. And anybody who's in a senior management role will have been bombarded with emails about everything going on in their team's world around the work. And you can get too much information by email and by Hangout and by, there's so many different ways we get information. So as a team leader, you need to decide what information your manager needs to know and what information they don't need to know, and don't copy them on everything and send them everything, because they'll run out of time to read everything and they'll miss the important things. So you need to be restrained. You need to be transparent. You need to pass important information to your manager. You need to be restrained in what you pass on, because if your manager is dealing with you the way that we had on in that first session, the last thing on that first slide about how to manage your team is you need to trust them. So your manager needs to trust you with the work that you're doing, and you only really need to be talking, passing information up if it's, general reporting on progress that happens on an infrequent basis, or if there's a problem coming up and they need to be aware of it, that's fine. And hopefully it'll be a problem that your team made you aware of in time to deal with it. And you can say to your manager, there's this problem, I'm aware of it, we're dealing with it, we'll be fine. Or if it's not fine, they need to know. But be restrained, don't bombard your manager with information. Be quick. So, every manager has more to do than they have time in the day to do it. You're probably all time-starved, too many things going on, not enough time in the day to get stuff done. And if someone in your team comes to you and starts to explain some things that they're going through, and they're going around their houses and it's taking 10 minutes for them to get to the point, you stop listening as a manager, because you want to get quickly to the point so you can deal with it. So that's the same with your managers. If you're going around their houses explaining something to them, it's a problem because their time is precious. So you need to be quick and concise with how you're bringing information to your manager. And you need to be clear. So clear here for me is synonymous with accurate. When you're bringing information to the manager, you need to make sure that they fully understand what you're bringing to them and it's accurate. So think really carefully about what information you're passing on to your manager, why you're passing it on, and how you're communicating it. Because if there's any misunderstandings there, it can cause bigger problems than if you hadn't passed the information on in the first place. So be clear. And be proactive. So again, your teams, you're going to expect them to be proactive, right? If they are hitting a problem with what they're doing, you're going to expect them to be proactive in solving that problem, either with their colleagues around them in your team, or bringing that problem to you so that you can help them solve it. It's the same with you. you're being trusted to get on with a role and to manage your team and to deliver. And you need to be proactive in how you are managing that situation. So being proactive is really important. And if you see stuff that needs doing, and you need to just get on with it. Don't wait to be told to do it. And it's the same with the people in your team. You know, you expect them, if they see something that needs to be done that's outside of the work that they've been given, you'd expect them to just get on with dealing with it because they've seen it and it's within their power to deal with it. So you need to be proactive. You need to aid decisions. So one of the things that is important for a manager is, as a manager, we make decisions, right? We take the information that our team feeds us, we make a decision with that information, and we do something with it. If you receive information in a concise, clear, quick, and honest way, it helps you to make decisions. So, but when you're giving information to your managers, you need to think about what they're going to do with the information and what decisions they need to make. So, let's say it's a financial decision. I don't know. Let's take something simple. You've got a team of people that are working, they've got headsets, and the client's complaining the headsets aren't working and it's not very clear. You need your manager to buy some more headsets, right? So you don't just go to the manager and say, can I have some more headsets? Because that doesn't aid them make the decision. You need to lay out, look, this is the situation, this is the problem. Hopefully, even research, you know, this is the headset we need, this is the cost, this is the benefit we're going to get, and then your manager looks at it and says, yeah, that makes sense, let's do it, aids the decision. So you need to help your managers aid decisions. And you need, going back to the previous section, you need to mentor your team in helping you make decisions so that they understand the same thing. You need to fanfare opportunities. I'll actually come on to an example of this later on, so I'm not going to peek now by doing that right away, but everyone in MetaQ comes up against opportunities with the clients that they're working on. And you need to understand those opportunities and tell people about them. So if you're dealing with a client and you hear something in the conversations that you're having that could lead to some additional work that we might be able to do, you need to tell someone so we can jump on to actually fostering that piece of work and actually winning some more business. Because everybody in a company is a salesperson. Everybody has the capability to understand, hear opportunities and raise them up and actually deliver on them and turn them into revenue, which helps grow the company, which means that everybody benefits. So fanfare opportunities, even the small ones, whatever you see, tell somebody so that we can do something about it. Oh, trust. Now I think I said that trust is a two-way thing. Trust is a two-way thing. So you want to foster trust with your manager. You want your manager to trust you to get on with your work without being micromanaged, or you want to be trusted. But you also need to trust your manager. You need to trust that your manager knows what they're doing, that they have a reason for every decision that they take, and so you need to trust your manager. And actually, if your manager makes a decision or asks you to do something that you're uncomfortable with or unhappy with, or you think it's a bad decision, or you think they're doing it the wrong way, to foster trust, rather than being upset and grumbling and maybe talking to somebody else about it, you need to sit down with the manager and say, you've given me some things to do in this way, I actually think it might be better done that way, can we have a chat about it? And you build trust. They trust that you are capable of your role because you're actually discussing in a good way this particular situation, and you build trust with them because they're listening to you and collaborating with you to perhaps do things in a different way. So you need to build trust with your manager both ways, and that is how you lead upwards, and it's very, very important. So who are the management? Well, obviously you have a line manager, right? But MetaQ is made up I don't know how many ones are on this slide. Is that a lot? Yeah, that's it. MetaCube is made up of various different departments that do various different things, and those departments have managers that own those departments. So, you know, you might be a team leader of a development team, but you also have a responsibility to the head of HR to make sure that they get the information that they need to do their job. You have a responsibility to the IT manager to make sure that they have everything they need to do their job, and you need to make sure you're following the policies and the processes that they're asking you to follow. So actually, when you think about management, don't just think about my management is my line manager. My management is all of the managers in all of the departments around the company, including all of the client managers. So if you're working with a client and there are different managers working with that particular client, they're all managers that you should be doing everything that was on the last slide with. So you need to know them, be transparent, be honest, be respectful. You need to do all of these things with all of the managers that you have a responsibility to and who have a responsibility to you across the business. Does that make sense? So, there's this guy. He was around in the 1500s. His name was Miyamoto Musashi, and he wrote a book called The Book of Five Rings, which is a great book if you get a chance to read it. And he had these 9 things that he came up with in his sort of wisdom of how he became the greatest samurai in Japan. I mean, this guy was an amazing samurai, the absolute best samurai in Japan. And I'm not going to talk you through all these 9 things. We can do this another time, because these are all really, really interesting and important things to understand as a person. But he came up with this thing which was know the ways of all professions. Okay? So when you think about that last slide, where we've got all of these different departments in the company doing lots of different things, instead of just focusing on your particular part of the business that you're working in, it's really important you understand how MetaCube works. You know, what makes the HR department tick? What makes the finance department tick? What makes the IT department tick? What other clients do we have going on? You need to think across the whole company and know how we're doing things and what's important across the whole business, because then that helps you make better decisions with your manager, and it also helps you make better decisions with your team. But this know the ways of all professions really does cut across a number of things, including clients. You know, when we work with a client, they're going to expect us to know their business, not just know our business. So, yeah, and I think probably most of you in this room have client interactions and client responsibilities. So, knowing your client, knowing their business, maybe they're in insurance, maybe they're in financial services or manufacturing or what have you, you need to know their business well as well. So, you know, do some personal development around that. So, leading upwards is a deliberate exercise. It's something that you need to make a plan for. You know, we spoke in the last session about having a plan for your team. All of the different team members and their individual kind of needs and how you're going to develop them. But you also need a plan, and you can write a plan down for how you're going to manage your manager. You can write a plan down around the things that you think are going well, the things that are not going so well, and you know, you can make a plan around that. And again, back to the red guy in the middle. Again, you know, you should be thinking about what do your managers need? What do you need from your managers? What you know, from a work point of view, do I need anything from my manager for my work? Do I have everything? Do I need to report any risks? Do I have any opportunities? Do I know any risks that are coming up? You need to be constantly asking yourself questions around your relationship with your manager, so that you can probe yourself around how you think your relationship is and the areas that you think you need to improve on. So constantly ask yourself questions, and this is why, I said on the last slide, it's a conscious thing. You need to actually sit down, take 10 minutes and say, right, I'm going to spend 10 minutes thinking about my manager and how my relationship is, and just write stuff down, what's going well, what's not going so well, and then you'll start to build a plan for how you can develop a better relationship with your manager. And I tell you now, if you do that, and then you start to do whatever you plan to do, your relationship will get better, everything will get better. It's a really, really important thing. So I'm not going to go through all these questions. These are just examples of things that you might want to think, but consciously do this. These are the things that will happen if you do that. So that's it. Makes things easier, makes you happier, builds MetaCube, makes MetaCube a better place. It helps with your career progression. It helps you with managing your team. You get a personal pride from actually being trusted and then trusting your manager. That actually fosters a really good relationship. It gives you personal improvement as well, because if you foster that relationship with your manager, you'll develop and they can help you develop as a person and also in your role. So we're running a couple of minutes over, but I think this is important because we've spoken a couple of times now about having a deliberate exercise to assess, how your relationship is with your team, how your relationship is with your manager, and we've also spoken about putting plans together. This is going to be a recurring theme. Don't want to spoiler alert, but you might see very similar slides throughout this presentation because it's something that a lot of people don't do. Most people just turn up, do their job, and do as best as they can, but they don't have an actual plan. They have a plan for the work, but they don't have a plan for the relationships with the team, for the relationships with the manager. If you do that, and you start to get into the habit of doing it, it will then become a very natural thing, and then it will become part of how you work as a person. Without even having to write a plan, you'll be constantly doing it. It's like, so I don't know if any of you know, but I play the drums, and when you're learning to play the drums, it's the most unnatural, uncomfortable thing you can possibly learn to do. All of your limbs doing different things at different times. So as a trainee drummer, you have to learn how to build muscle memory, and you do it consciously. Like you're consciously thinking, I'm going to hit, and you do that, and it's a conscious thing, and then suddenly it becomes a subconscious thing. You're doing all of these, you're still thinking about it, but it's not quite so front of mind, and eventually you build that muscle memory, and it becomes a natural, unconscious thing that you do with that particular skill. And then you need to do that over and over again to get better and better with different skills and doing things faster.